All right, I want you to imagine something. Picture a mind so brilliant it could map entire continents, all from inside a locked room. A mind so powerful it was forbidden from even touching the most basic tool of its trade, a compass. This is the incredible and tragic story of Matteo.
Yeah, this quote, it just perfectly captures the paradox we're about to dive into, doesn't it? We're talking about a story of genius that wasn't just discovered, it was exploited. It's about a mind that literally charted the path to freedom for others, all while being denied any of its own. So our story starts way back in colonial Peru. We're on this huge, confusing, maze-like estate called the Hacienda San Rafael. And it's here that a young slave boy named Matteo first starts to show this spatial intelligence that seemed almost supernatural to everyone around him. And what's really fascinating here is how people first saw his talent. I mean, they'd send him on errands with deliberately confusing directions just to test him, and he'd come back in half the time. When they asked him how he did it, he'd just point up at the sky and say something like, well, the sun was there, so east had to be there. It was a logic so simple, so pure, that to them it looked like magic. Okay, so this was the big turning point. A powerful military officer, General Alvarez, gets his hunting party completely and catastrophically lost. I'm talking their own professional military mapmaker is totally baffled. Out of desperation, they summon this kid, Matteo. And get this, with no map, no compass, nothing, he just reads the landscape. You know, the moss on the trees, the way the water was flowing, and leads them straight home. The general was, of course, impressed, but he didn't see a boy. He saw a tool.
So what happens next? Matteo gets taken to Lima, but he's not going there to be trained or educated. No, he's an asset now. He basically becomes the secret weapon for the general's entire cartography department. His genius was systematically mined for military secrets, and in the process, his own identity was just completely erased.
Let's actually break down how this brutally efficient system worked. It was a perfect cycle of intellectual theft, really. You see, the military got its strategic maps, this guy Felipe got all the promotions and the glory, and the general, of course, looked like a brilliant commander. So everyone benefited from Matteo's mind, except, of course, Matteo.
And this brings us to probably the cruelest, most symbolic rule of his entire captivity. Can you believe it? Matteo, the master of navigation, was never, ever allowed to even touch a compass. The general's logic was just chillingly simple, and he laid it out for Philippe. A slave with a map and a compass could escape. His mind was a priceless tool, but his freedom? That was a liability.
Just look at this comparison here. It really lays out the injustice of it all. For doing the exact same work, Felipe gets everything a professional could ever want. And Matteo? He gets a windowless room. He was a ghost, creating the very maps that guided armies and shaped the power of an empire. But his own life was forced to stay in the shadows.
But here's the thing. Even in captivity, a genius like Matteo's couldn't be completely contained. His story is about to take a couple of really dramatic turns, and each one just highlights this stark contrast between his incredible value and the system's profound cruelty.
Okay, so here's his first major triumph. He's tasked with mapping a supposedly unmappable part of the Amazon. And what does he do? He takes all these secondhand reports from missionaries, trader sketches, indigenous stories, and puts them all together. He creates a map so ridiculously accurate that it leads a military expedition to success with almost no casualties. And the most amazing part? He did all of this from a room in Lima. He never even set foot in the jungle himself.
You'd think a talent like that would protect him, right? Wrong. When his original owner went bankrupt, Matteo was just sold, like any other piece of property. He was sent to the brutal silver mines of Cajamarca, a place where the life expectancy for a worker was maybe 3 to 5 years. Think about that. He went from mapping the world to literally being buried inside it.
And then disaster strikes. A tunnel collapses, trapping dozens of miners in absolute darkness. While everyone else is panicking, Matteo's mind just clicks into gear. He visualizes a path out, navigating a small group through this labyrinth of unmapped, forgotten tunnels. And that number you see, 14, that's how many lives he saved that day.
So, you'd think, for saving 14 men with an act of pure genius, what's his reward gonna be? A medal? His freedom, maybe?
Nope, not even close.
The tragic irony here is that his heroism actually made him seem more dangerous. General Alvarez put two and two together. A slave who can navigate out of a collapsed mine can navigate his way out of anything. So he was bought back and put under even tighter security. His reward for saving all those lives was, believe it or not, a more secure prison.
And this is the moment Mateo's story really shifts. It goes from a story of survival to one of pure defiance. He finally understood that his talent was never going to buy his freedom, so he decided to make one last, permanent claim on his own work, even if it meant risking his life to do it.
So in secret, he creates his most dangerous map yet. A full, comprehensive chart of the city of Lima, detailing all of its highly sensitive military intelligence. I mean, just making this map was basically espionage. To sign it, that would be a confession. The plan was to leak it to foreign powers. Not for money, but just so his work, with his name on it, would finally exist out there, beyond Spanish control.
And here it is, the most crucial part. For the very first time, he signed his name. After years and years of ghostwriting the geography of an entire empire, he finally put his own name to his work. Such a simple act of authorship, right? But in his world, that was an act of treason.
Unfortunately, he got caught before he could get the map out. And in the confrontation that followed, the general just lays out the cold logic of the system. He tells him, "You have no right to sign anything." And Mateo's response, well, it was the simple, devastating truth of his entire life. He just says, "Then I have no reason to create anything."
So Mateo was sentenced to a brutal sugar plantation. But the thing is, the story of his genius and his defiance, it had started to spread. And an unexpected intervention suddenly puts him on this collision course. A race, really, between the freedom he'd been waiting for his whole life and his own failing health.
It turns out Felipe finally confessed to the whole scheme. And this got the attention of the Viceroy of Peru, who intervened. He didn't just grant immediate freedom, but he set up a formal path for it, something called manumission. The deal was, Mateo would be moved to a civilian office, his work would finally be credited to him, and in 5 years, he'd be a free man. The countdown had officially begun.
But those years, the years in the mines, on the plantation, they had taken a serious toll. His health was just deteriorating so fast. And as you can see from this timeline, the final act of his life is just a gut-wrenching tragedy of timing. The bureaucracy moved just a little bit slower than his disease.
24 hours. Just think about that. That's how close he came. A single day. That's all that separated a lifetime of bondage from a future of freedom. The official order for his release arrived the day after he died.
But you know what? His story doesn't quite end there. His friend, Rafael, kept a promise he made on Mateo's deathbed. He found a secret, comprehensive map of South America that Mateo had hidden years before, the very first one he'd ever signed. Raphael sent it all the way to London, where the Royal Society, recognizing its absolute genius, catalogued it, officially under Mateo's name. His name, finally and forever, was attached to his work.
And that just leaves us with this final, haunting question, doesn't it? I mean, Mateo's story was only preserved because of a bunch of unlikely events. It really makes you wonder, how many other Mateos were there? How many other brilliant minds were just completely consumed by the systems that enslaved them? How many incredible contributions to science, to art, to knowledge were just erased, their creators living and dying as anonymous property? And that, I think, is the quiet, powerful legacy of the cartographer's compass.